Where we want to bring up our James Joseph Lecture for 2014, but there's a little bit of a process that we're going to use to do that. First, I want to acknowledge former James Joseph lecturers who are here with us this evening, and if you fit that description, I would like you to stand, please, so we can acknowledge former James Joseph lecturers. Of course, Bob Ross from the California Endowment, 2013. Karen Kelly Ararula, James Joseph Lecture for 2012. Thank you. Thank you for all that you do. To introduce the 2014 James Joseph Lecturer, I'm going to ask Gladys Washington from the Mary Reynolds Babcock Foundation to come up. Gladys is a former board chair of ABFI, and I will just say, personally to me, a mentor.
Good evening again. Y'all know I'm from the South. Y'all know I do that every time I get this microphone, right? It is indeed an honor and my distinct pleasure to introduce the 2014 James A. Joseph Lecturer, the Reverend Dr. William C. Bell. A man for whom I have much respect and admiration. Dr. Bell is a true son of the South. Yes, he is. Having been born in Mississippi, who has built an outstanding and illustrious career with the primary focus of caring for our children. With over 30 years' experience in the human services field, William has directed New York City's Administration for Children's Services as Deputy Commissioner and subsequently Commissioner, where he managed child welfare services. He was also Deputy Commissioner of Case Management for the New York City Human Resources Administration and the Executive Director of a child and family services organization in New York City. Dr. Bell is currently the President and Chief Executive Officer of Casey Family Programs, where he is responsible for the vision, mission, strategies, and objectives of the foundation. Casey Family Programs is the nation's largest operating foundation focused entirely on foster care and improving the child welfare system. William and Casey Family Programs is a founding partner in Cities United, a national partnership to assist U.S. mayors and municipal leaders committed to eliminating violence-related deaths of African American males. William is a former chair of the ABFI board. As my board colleague, he supported my leadership and encouraged all of us. I remember discussing the possibility of his chairmanship with him, but he and I seem to remember that occasion quite differently. I recall that I laid out a great rationale on the benefits of his leadership for ABFI. He recalls that I told him that he was going to do it and that he had no choice but to comply. I happen to be right. And he has planted the seeds that have flourished into the ABFI you see and are members of today. I am grateful, both personally and professionally, for his light and his leadership, as is his staff and others in philanthropy. Through his influence, I am the proud grandmother of a little boy that my son and my daughter-in-law adopted, preventing him from entering the foster care system as his 6 siblings had before him. I thank you, William. William is a proud father himself, but he is a staunch advocate for all of our children. He does it with an abiding faith that mountains can be moved. He does it with the hope that things will change. And he offers the love to make it so. When I think of William, I am reminded of 1 Corinthians 13th chapter, verses 4 through 7, that clearly describes who William is. He is patient. He is kind. He does not envy, and he does not boast. He honors others and is not self-seeking. He is not easily angered, and he always operates from a place of forgiveness with a sweet, sweet spirit, a generous heart, and a truthful tongue. And so it is with love, deep gratitude, and appreciation that we honor Dr. William Bell as the 2014 James A. Joseph Lecturer. Let's say his name.
Okay, we're gonna put this down.
We are presenting to Dr. Bell tonight a piece of art that has gone to every James Joseph lecturer over the past 24 years. The artist is Lloyd McNeil. He's an artist as well as a jazz musician. And the painting is titled Rainbow People. And it was commissioned by AbbVie to demonstrate the pride and promise of Black people in all that we offer the world. Congratulations, William.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Sudhir. Thank you. Wow. I guess the only place that I can start right now is by saying thank you. Gladys told me that she only cries 3 times a year, and that this wasn't going to be one of them. So I guess she was pulling on me to cry for her. You know, it is a great pleasure to be here with you tonight at AbbVie's annual conference and the Joint Affinity Group's Unity Summit. And if you can sit in this room right now and not feel a spirit of unity and a spirit of love, somebody needs to lay hands on you. You didn't call me for that, but you know, I'm honored to be the 23rd James A. Joseph Lecturer, and I'm honored and thankful to those who chose me to receive this great honor. I'm deeply thankful for the friendship of Gladys and the way that she has in letting you know when you mean something to her. The same way she can let you know when you're in that other place. And I also want to thank Susan and the AbbVie board, the AbbVie staff, for the way that you have gone about bringing a sense of meaning to the concept of responsive and transformative investments in Black communities. You know, you can say words sometimes and they sound good, but they're void of real meaning. But under Susan's leadership, those words have garnered a much deeper and a much more transformative and inclusive meaning. I also want to thank each of you who have come here tonight. And thank you not just for being in this room, but thank you for the way that you have shown your support for APFI and for all of the other affinity groups. You know, I feel like I'm here tonight talking about being a lecturer for APFI, but the space in this room is about being a lecturer for our children and for our people. And finally, I want to say thank you to the board and to the executive leadership and to the staff at Casey Family Programs for their insights and their efforts and their dedication to truly trying to facilitate the building of communities of hope for all of our children. The Maasai have a way of greeting each other where they ask the question, Kasarian and Jera, how are the children? And the tribal response to that question, whether you have a child, whether you will have a child, or whether you will never give birth to a child, the tribal response to that is Sapati and Jera, which is a declaration that all the children are well. And so as I greet you tonight, I greet you from that position of hope and faith that at some point, as we were urged on by Sister Tracy, at some point, we keep on moving and we keep on pushing until we make it in. Yes. But we can't make it in if the children are not well. We live in a time where you can be criticized for doing something that so many other people have done before you. You can be criticized for honoring a code that has been a part of the world as we know it as long as there has been war. You do not leave a soldier on the battlefield. But yet when certain people make a decision not to leave a soldier on the battlefield, somehow we've done something wrong. Kasarian and Jera and Sapati and Jera asked us a question. How long are we going to continue to let our children die on the battlefield of their neighborhoods? How long are we going to continue to sit by and act as though there's nothing we can do? I am honored to be here tonight because we are here tonight to talk about Umoja. We're here tonight to talk about unity, to talk about togetherness in a world that doesn't demonstrate that we are so together. Given that I'm a preacher, I'm also here to take this watch off so I won't keep talking. Because y'all gonna stop saying amen in a minute. But we cannot keep looking forward about unity and planning for how we're going to change things and become more together without first taking a pause to take a look back and understand that the reason that we can stand here tonight in such a diverse room of philanthropic leaders, because it was not so at one point in our past. It is not what it needs to be at this point in our path, but it is far better than it was because we kept on moving and we kept on pushing. And so the reason that we can stand here tonight is because some 43 years ago, 1971, there was a group of leaders along with Ambassador Joseph who decided to stand up and say enough is enough. There was a group of leaders who decided to stand up and say, we can no longer sit by and watch what is happening. To very capable leaders in philanthropy who happened to be black or other people of color who were being passed over. We can't keep sitting here saying it's okay. And because of your leadership, Because of your willingness to take a stand, we can stand here in this moment. We can stand here in this moment because you and your colleagues didn't listen to the voices that undoubtedly whispered in your ear, you need to wait. We can stand here because undoubtedly you and your colleagues did not listen to the voices that said, don't push so hard. You don't want to risk all that you might lose, but what you've been given by the opportunity that has been given to you, not that you earned, what's been given to you. I wasn't there, but I'm pretty sure those messages were sent to you. But we can stand here today. We can stand here tonight because you said, I can't wait any longer. How long do my people have to wait for justice? How long? How long do we have to wait for somebody to say it's okay for your zip code not to be the most determinant factor as to where you will end up in life? How long? How long do we have to wait for your zip code no longer to be the most determinant factor of whether or not you will reach age 21, even though you were born healthy, no low birth weight? You didn't have any illnesses. But because of the zip code where you live, you might not see 21. How long? We can stand here tonight because leaders in the 80s and the 90s decided that what was done before them in the 70s was not going to be in vain. And so you raised up a group of leaders who took the mantle and took it well and passed it from one to another so that we could continue to see and hear our voices ring loud saying, how long are you going to hold on to the pie and cause us to fight over the crust? We can stand in this moment because leaders before us were willing to stand up and say, something has got to give. Something has to change. We cannot leave this world for the leaders who will follow us the way it is right now. We cannot leave the conditions in our communities for the children who are not yet born to continue to be the way that they are. We can stand here tonight because leaders before us had a willingness to stand up and build pathways of hope for us to follow. You know how hopeful you can be when you can look at somebody else and say, they made it? And if they made it, that must mean it is possible for me to make it. We can stand here tonight and talk about unity and umoja because there's hope. Hope for higher academic achievement for our children. Hope for children to live in communities that are free from violence. Hope for a world where every child's life matters. Where you don't have to hear that 6 people got killed at a laundromat in Chicago, but we don't know what their names are and there are no suspects. Hope. Hope for a time when every child has a right to a high quality education. Hope. Hope because leaders decided to be advocates. Hope because leaders decided to influence. Hope because leaders decided to push the doors open so that we could have a pathway through. But the question before us tonight, to us leaders of philanthropy today, what are we going to influence? What are we going to advocate for? What doors are we going to push open to change the pathways of hope for our children, to change the pathways of hope for their families, to change the pathways of hope for their communities, to change the pathways of hope for the person of color, for the LGBT person who is not yet out of high school who will be an executive in philanthropy? What are we going to do?
the question before us tonight is, how do we work together to change the pathway for our most vulnerable citizens? And when I say we, I mean foundation leaders, government leaders, and community leaders, and parents, and youth, and business leaders, and not-for-profit leaders. How are we going to work together to find the will to make things different? And you understand I said the will, because I didn't say capacity. We have the capacity. There is absolutely no way this room could be as full as it is, and there are more who could be here who are not. There is no way that we could be running the kinds of organizations that we're running today. There is no way that we could have the kind of technology that we have today. There is no way that you can convince me that the things that we are trying to change today in philanthropy is about capacity. And I would suggest to you that we've already started to walk down the pathway. And for the next few minutes, I want to talk to you about what that pathway is. And I believe that the pathway that will get us to where we need to be is the pathway of philanthropy and government finding a better way to work together. And I don't say that to suggest that we are not working together. The efforts of the Executive Alliance and My Brother's Keeper, the efforts of the Kellogg's Foundation in the South, the efforts of the Skillman Foundation and others in Detroit, and many examples throughout your foundations that can show where you are working differently with government today than you have in the past. But I still raise the question. And the reason I continue to raise the question is because I don't know that we have had the open conversation with government that says we need to talk about how we come together and what you think when you see me and what I think when I see you. And we need to get to a place where we are shouting as loud as we can that we are more than our money. We are more than our money. We are strategic demonstrators. We are strategic partners. We are members of our communities. We are advocates for change. And we are the sons and daughters of the struggle for justice for all of our communities and all of our children. We are more than our money. And we have to be more than our money if we're going to bring the pathway of hope that our children need. Because when you start to talk about the dynamics of the money situation, we need to understand something. All of the money of every foundation in the United States of America that we spend on an annual basis cannot compete nor compare to the spending of the government. And when I say government, I'm talking state, local, federal, and tribal. And for my tribal brothers and sisters, I don't mean to suggest that I believe that you are on par with what has been taken from you, that you cannot reap the benefits of. So I'm clear, but you're still government. And you still got a responsibility to people. And we still need to work together to figure out how we can help you too. But at the end of the day, our money can only be used to complement, leverage, and enhance the effectiveness of the spending of government money. And I'll go from words to numbers. So let's do numbers. So the Foundation Center says that from 2009 through 2012, the total, and this is independent foundation, this is operating foundations, this is community foundations, and corporate. The total of our giving in 2009 was about $46 billion. That was our annual output. They estimate in 2012 it was about $52 billion, and that current estimates for 2013, about $55 billion. Now, that's a lot of money. In 2009, just on public school education, none of the other stuff, just on public school education in 2009, the federal, state, and local revenues for public education was about $591 billion. $591 billion. And I don't need to go down the pathway to tell you how many of our kids dropped out of school, how many of our kids left school and couldn't read, how many of our kids left school because the teacher was afraid of them, and how many of our fourth graders' reading scores became the basis for project planning for how many prisons to build. We have to demonstrate that we are more than our money. We are the sons and the daughters of the struggle for justice for all of our children. And from the earliest times, we've had this dance between philanthropy and government, where sometimes government will reach out to us to say, can you put some of your money to reinforce this effort that I have underway? And we say yes, as we typically do, or we say no, we can't because it doesn't fit in. And sometimes, most of the time, we look to government to scale up what we've proven works on a smaller scale. And we've danced that dance back and forth, but then something happened almost 33 years ago in the first year of President Reagan's term in office. As the president was looking at how to change the outlay of federal dollars to public issues, or issues that are affecting the majority of the zip codes that I'm talking about where our communities live, the zip codes that need to be transformed and invested in, President Reagan decided that he needed to engage foundations. And so he signed Executive Order number 12329, which created the President's Task Force on Private Sector Initiatives. And the task force was charged with advising the President, the Secretary of Commerce, and other executive agency heads with respect to methods of developing, supporting, and promoting private sector leadership and their responsibility for meeting public needs. I hope you caught that shift in the conversation. The task force was also charged with offering recommendations for appropriate action by the President to foster greater public-private partnerships and to decrease dependence on government. That task force operated for a year, and as with the executive order that created it, the task force ceased to exist about a year later, December 1982. But what they had done was to begin a conversation about what should happen with our money and how that should be influenced. And where we find ourselves today is we're in a constructive conversation where we're sitting down with the White House saying, let's figure out jointly how we do this. But it hasn't mattered to us who's been in the White House, because over the last 33 years, we have continued to focus on eliminating poverty. We have continued to focus on dismantling the prison-to-school pipeline, the school-to-prison pipeline. We've continued to focus on health care and school disciplinary policies. We've declared that no child in pre-K or kindergarten should be expelled from school. I could go another 20 minutes on that one, but we have brought national attention to the needs of black men and boys, and we have elevated the need to end senseless violence in the communities where our kids live, and we have demonstrated that we can even reduce the number of kids in foster care. But yet, we still find ourselves in a place where even though the government is spending almost $600 billion on education, we're spending $55 billion across our focus area, we still have challenges. And there's some of us who might even be questioning whether government is broken or whether it is working. And I would suggest to you that it's not an issue of capacity. It is an issue of will. We've done some analysis on zip codes and about what you can see depending on what zip code you live in. And we looked at one data stat. And that one data stat was, if you're 25 years or older, what percentage of that population in your zip code, 25 years and older, has something less than a GED? In one city that I looked at, in one zip code, which was right next door to the other zip code, one zip code could boast that only 1.5% of the people in that zip code 25 years and older had something less than a GED. The next door zip code, that number was 46.6%. I don't think that lack of capacity produces a 1.5% number. Nor do I think lack of capacity produces a 46.6% number. I think it is a question of will. And my question to us is, what will we do to shift the will? How will we use something other than our money? How will we use our voices? How will we use our ability to stand to say enough is enough? To say it is enough when every 24 hours in this great nation, 2,000 of our children are confirmed as victims of child abuse and neglect. Enough is enough when every 24 hours in this country, 700 of our children are removed from their families and placed in foster care. Enough is enough when every 24 hours in this country, 187 of our children are arrested for violent crimes. Enough is enough when every 24 hours in this country, 847 babies are born to teen parents. Enough is enough when every 24 hours in this country, 16,244 of our students are suspended from school. Enough is enough when every 24 hours in this country, 2,857 of our high school students drop out of school. Enough is enough when almost 4 kids die every 24 hours in this country from child abuse and neglect. Enough is enough when 13 of our children aged 10 to 24 die every 24 hours from homicide. Enough is enough when 12 of our young people under the age of 25 decide that death is a better option for them than to live one more day of life as they know it. Enough is enough. When we are losing 29 young people under the age of 25 being left on the battlefield every 24 hours in this highly resourced, highly capable, highly intelligent nation. Enough is enough when every 15 days we lose 435 young people under the age of 25. And oddly enough, that is the same number of people that we have in the House of Representatives. When will enough be enough? When they look back at us as leaders, what will they be able to say we stood up against? Which doors will they be able to say that we pushed open? What will they be able to say about how much we kept on moving and how much we kept on pushing? You see, I stand here to celebrate with you and to compliment you on what we have done as a sector and the accomplishments that we have made, but how can we boast? How can we declare success when this is still true? I leave you tonight celebrating with ABFE and with JAG the progress that we've made. But I leave you tonight also with the notion that we're standing on the edge of history. And I want to know, what story will history tell about us and the decisions that we made, the risks that we took, the leadership that we demonstrated to say, enough is enough. God bless you all.